I'm Mark Zinni. This morning here on CT22, reaction to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Connecticut Congressman Joe Courtney will be joining us. We'll also be sharing what we learned during Matthew Campbell's week-long series on renters' rights here in our state. And a number of new flights soon to be taking off from Connecticut's two airports. The executive directors of Bradley and Tweed are both here. We'll also ask them about the possibility that another passenger airport could soon be opening here in Connecticut. It's all on this final Sunday of February. CT22 starts right now.
From WFSB, this is CT22 with Eric Parker, sponsored by Hartford Healthcare.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Zinni, and this morning for Eric. It was late Wednesday night, East Coast time, that the Russian invasion of Ukraine began. We knew it could happen, but it's hard to believe that it actually did happen. Here to talk more about it and why we all should be concerned is Congressman Joe Courtney of Connecticut's 2nd District. He's also a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here.
Let me get your reaction, first of all, to what is happening in Ukraine. As I was just saying, we knew this could happen. It did happen, unfortunately. What are you hearing?
So, I mean, we've been looking at intelligence since the fall. It has shown the troops massing at the border, as well as equipment that the only logical explanation would be that there was going to be a full-blown invasion. And we know that Putin has been really, aiming to do this for years. I mean, he seized the Crimea Peninsula back in 2014, as well as there's been, a constant conflict in the eastern part of Ukraine over the last 8 years. 13,000 Ukrainians have lost their lives during that time period. He's somebody who, again, has been really itching to conquer Ukraine, which he feels is rightfully part of Russia, which is a totally out of touch, almost deranged view, given the fact that the people of Ukraine, by overwhelming margins, want to stay as an independent country and are a high functioning democracy and, free market economy. Lots of Ukrainians here in Connecticut. We have many in Eastern Connecticut, which I represent. I was at church in Willimantic last Sunday, and these are hardworking people who contribute to our state and who are watching this, obviously, with great anxiety. But look at anytime there's an invasion in Europe, which has been obviously one of the parts of the world going back to the 20th century that has really been riddled with conflict. To see this happening, as much as we sort of knew it was coming with the intelligence, is still stunning and shocking, as you said. And one positive thing is that the world, I think, the free world and the West, but also our allies and the Pacific have all come together to unite to punish Russia with very strong sanctions, and also are determined to help the Free Ukraine forces with military assistance.
On that theme with these sanctions, obviously that has been something that President Biden has been talking about now for quite some time. Explain what that means exactly, because I think a lot of people all week long we've been covering these stories are wondering, are we doing enough? Is NATO doing enough? But is the focus right now to just kind of go after their financial center, their banks and things of that nature?
So, I mean, clearly what's happened in the last few days is that obviously the NATO, EU, US countries have all banded together to basically isolate Russia's economy. And if you look at the damage that's been done to the Russian currency, the ruble has dropped to record lows. Its stock market lost half its value in 24 hours. Oil brokers won't touch Russian oil right now because they can't do any transactions because of all the restrictions that have been put in place. So, I mean, clearly that's the goal is to really inflict real fast pain to Russia. But in terms of military assistance, a lot of Stingers and Javelin missiles came in over the last really 60 to 90 days. I was on a call with the Ukrainian ambassador this morning. They need more help. And I think we're going to find ways to resupply, those weapons, which can really have a big impact on Russian helicopters and Russian tanks. And we've seen that actually in day one, which did not go that great for Putin.
Are we doing enough right now, though? Because I know Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro the other day had made the comment that she really thought there was more we could do, more sanctions, maybe more action of another kind. What are your thoughts on that? Is it enough right now?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know exactly when Rosa said that, but clearly, we've seen a pretty steep ratcheting up of the sanctions really just in the last 48 hours with the second tranche that came out and that the president announced this week. Europe is already looking at a third tranche. And again, the Belgians, which control this SWIFT transaction mechanism, which is really kind of the death penalty in terms of any economic transactions, is still sort of ready to go and holster. But as I said, if you look at the markets in terms of the Russian economy, I mean, they are really going in a tailspin right now, just from the first two sets of sanctions that are happening there. And as I said, I think it has really been impressive because these countries were not together 2 months ago, European countries in the U.S. But I think the stunning realization of how dangerous Putin is right now in terms of what he's doing to the international rule of law and world order, I think has been, just an incredible impact in terms of getting people united and moving together in meaningful ways.
Well, he also seems to have united his own people in his own country almost against him. You see these protests that are happening with these people all throughout Russia. They don't want war, it looks like, at least in a lot of the video that we're seeing on the internet.
No, that takes a lot of guts to do that. And we have to do everything we can in terms of making sure they're getting good information. The Voice of America, for Ukraine and Russia now is in overdrive in terms of really countering the misinformation that Putin has, used for his whole time in office. And I think it's been effective in terms of really countering the false narrative that Putin's trying to create.
Now, before we let you go, we don't have much time, Congressman, but, why should people in Connecticut be paying very close attention to this over the next coming days?
Well, obviously, we have a stake in terms of, having rule of law. I mean, that is really what has driven, I think, prosperity for our country and for our allies, really since the end of World War II. And this is really, I think, the biggest threat to that sort of architecture. Both in terms of, our trade systems, our economic systems, and as well as our systems of national security. And I think, again, NATO is coming together like it's supposed to. And we have stepped up both boots on the ground as well as placement in Poland and the Baltic Republic. So it's, again, I think U.S. leadership is definitely on full display again.
Congressman Joe Courtney, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time. Later on in our Sunday Spotlight, air travel to and from Connecticut. Avelo now adding more destinations to its lineup out of Tweed. And Breeze will be taking Connecticut passengers to some new places later on this year out of Bradley. We'll be talking with the leaders of both airports, but coming up next, renters' rights. Our chief investigative reporter, Matthew Campbell, has some takeaways from his week-long series of reports on everything from raised rents to infestations to evictions, and a brand new way renters can get some help. He'll be joining us coming up next.